Okay, welcome everyone to the September session of TO Mobile Devs. We're on hiatus for August, mostly because we had a meeting in July and it was really nice outside, and all I wanted to do is get away from the computer. So that was very selfish, but I think justified. Winter is going to be here soon for us folks here in Toronto. So want to take advantage of the summer months while we can. We have Luis Pujols joining us tonight to talk about mobile app redesign for developers, which is excellent. You'll see some of the great work he did kind of helping out on an open source project. Funny enough, an open source project that was started by Brandon Minnick, who we had back in July. So it's kind of interrelated, which is great. So I'm just going to plug one quick thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Luis. That's cool. So I just want to bring to attention a session coming up on Thursday. So on Thursday, our sponsor, JetBrains, is going to be doing a Xamarin-based webinar. It's going to be Rodney Littles. So if you know Rodney, he's a major part of the Xamarin community. He does a lot of work with Reactive and ReactiveX and ReactiveX UI, which is great. Great framework for building your Xamarin apps, really great for UI-rich apps. So that's going to be on Thursday. I've got a little tiny URL in there, so you can go to that tiny URL /JB-RX-Maui. So this is kind of looking ahead at the evolution of Xamarin as we move towards the Maui launch. I'll put that link in the chat here, and then you can go ahead and go sign up. Stay tuned to the end, and we'll have a little bit of a social time at the end, and you can pander to me for some JetBrains licenses as well. I have those to give away as part of the meetup. All right, that's all I've got. Without further ado, Luis, I'm gonna make you the host, and you can kick off your presentation. Perfect, go ahead.
Perfect. I just noticed I was muted. Well, thank you for that great presentation, Dylan. I'm really excited to be a part of this event today, and just seeing all the Toronto community present. And it's really hard times, and these types of events are good because they keep us motivated and active, and we can just chill for 2 hours. And in this case, we're gonna be seeing. Let me come over here and share my screen. So in this case, we're gonna take this time to learn a bit about mobile app redesign. And how can we achieve this by being developers, right? So a little bit about me let me bring my Zoom to the other side. Give me a second so I can also look at the chat here. Okay, perfect. So a little bit about me for the attendees. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Luis Pujols. I'm a software engineer originally from Dominican Republic. I work full-time as a Xamarin mobile developer. I'm part of the CrossGeeks team, and also a co-organizer of the .NET Dominicana community. I also have a blog where I post a lot of Xamarin related stuff, and you're always gonna find me in any of my social media, whether could it be Twitter, LinkedIn, just sharing and talking about Xamarin. So if you any day you want to talk about it, just ping me in any of those social media, and we can go the whole day just into Xamarin tech stuff. I got something in my other screen. Give me a second. I need to move. Yeah. Sorry, my screens are acting up right now. Okay, perfect. So let me know if you can see my screen and the slideshow I'm sharing at the moment.
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. So today we're gonna be talking about what is mobile, what is basically the process we did with mobile redesign, and to talk about this first, it's good to have a use case, right? Something we can use an example and apply what we're gonna be talking about. So in this case, we're gonna use the mobile apps Git Trends. We're gonna learn about it. Then we're gonna be seeing about how can we gather inspiration to drive our redesign, right? Then we're gonna be seeing a bit about choosing a visual language to aid us. We're also gonna be seeing magic numbers and what tools can we use to get the job done. And lastly, we're gonna be defining our workflow and our feedback loop, right? All of these things are the stuff that is going to help us throughout this process. So what is Git Trends? Git Trends is basically a mobile app project that was developed by Brandon Minnick. A lot of you know who he is. He's part of the Xamarin team and also a really active community member. He loves talking about Xamarin, and he's always doing something around it and posting blogs and just doing his role, which is being a developer advocate at Microsoft. And this whole project came to be because Brandon had a lot of repositories stored in his GitHub, right? And he noticed that after a few months, some of those projects, he was no longer working on them, right? But um, he went in one day into his GitHub, and he noticed that those projects he thought were now abandoned actually were getting traffic, and people were actually still cloning them, marking them as favorite, interacting with those projects. But he was not conscious that these projects were becoming a trend again, right? And maybe if he could have had that data at hand, he could have gone to any of those projects, remember them, and maybe got motivated to work on them again, right? So based on that problem, he said, well, why don't I just create an app that allows me to do exactly that? So that's what Git Trends does. Git Trends allows you to have to have your list of repositories, and Git Trends is going to tell you which of those repos are not getting a lot of traffic, and 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 give you data and stats on them that you can act upon and go back to your repo and maybe update the README, work on some issues, and get the ball rolling again, right? So initially, the first version that Brandon released to the public was version 0.11. He released it in the beginning of the year, and he started reaching out to some of the community members with the project and just trying to get some feedback and see what the community thought about it. So when he presented this to me, I was really excited about the project because the same problem he was having, I really identified with it as well. Because we in CrossGeeks we manage a lot of plugins, and we have different open source projects that we run into the same case, right? So as soon as I downloaded Git Trends, I was really excited to see how I could contribute to it, because the best part of this project is that it's completely open source. And so I was like, okay, let me give him the feedback, but let me see also in what could I contribute, which is something that I would recommend anyone in the community. As soon as you see an open source project that is in something you like, in this case, Xamarin, try and contribute something. Just it could be either as a thank you or just because you're really interested in seeing how everything is working in the behind the scenes, right? So as soon as I downloaded Git Trends and I saw the code, I was shocked because Brandon had been working on this for around 1 or 2 years, and he had used the project more as a means of like a greenfield Xamarin project, right? So anything new that came out, he will try to implement in the project and see if he could get that feature working, and try to make it and try to implement all the best practices uh, to the app, right? So this is the initial design the app had, and it might not look the most beautiful, but since Brandon, the whole idea of Brandon creating this project was just testing out the features and getting his idea out there, right? I I would also do the same he did. I would not focus a lot in the UI UX, and he was clear about it when he presented it to me. He was like, "Listen, Louis, I'm gonna send you this up. You're gonna check it out, give me feedback. But I know the UI UX, I have not worked on it because I focus more on the features. So I also recommend the same thing. When you're trying to get an idea and validate it, focus more on getting the logic and all the features working, and leave the polishment of the UI for last. But that doesn't mean that while you're developing your app, you're not going to make the necessary adjustments so your UI is easy to polish later on, right? So that was something I really liked about the project as well. When I went into the code and I saw all the UI and how he had it structured, it was really easy for us once we did the redesign to implement it in the app, to implement that redesign into the app, because he had everything in styles, he had themes defined. So I will also recommend that. Just make sure your app is prepared to easily be modifiable, right? You can set everything in styles, resource files, and that way, once you do the process we're gonna do, the redesign process is gonna be easier for you uh, to swap things out in and out, right? So as soon as I got the project, the first thing I thought about, okay, how can we polish further the vision he has for Git Trends? So immediately, uh, the three key things I noticed was that, okay, immediately what we can do to contribute to this open source project is identify and fix bugs, propose maybe new features for the app, and also propose UI UX change improvements, right? And this stack is happening because the one I was most motivated to work on was the improve UI UX. At the moment, the only challenge and struggle I had was, okay, I know that I want to work on this project, right, and contribute. But what I wanted to do with the UI UX of this project was to make it a production ready design, right? But there was only one problem. Before doing this, I had literally no clue about design. Like, I've never researched it. I've never dived into it. I've only played around with some tools and like made simple banners. So that was one of like the mental walls I had to break. Of I'll probably need a designer to actually get a clean and polished design. So after imposing to ourselves this challenge of creating a clean and an attractive design, we started discovering different things throughout the way that helped us to achieve this, right? And one of the first things we did was, okay, we have the base design, which is this one. Now let's find ideas on how can we optimize. I mean, how can we redesign it, right? How can we make it more beautiful? And in our, so while trying to find inspiration, we found three great websites that are really famous in the community, mostly in the topics, mostly in the blog posts related to UI challenges, which, so basically to create a post like that or a UI challenge, what we normally do is we go to a site like Material Up or Behance or Dribble, and these are great sites to find a bunch of mobile app designs uploaded by awesome designers, and they're most of them are free, and you can literally like go to the site and download any of the designs. So let me show you here. So this is, you could see these sites like basically the GitHub of designers. They use these sites to upload their portfolio and to get jobs through them. So there's a really good amount of good content here. So you can literally use this site and say, okay, let me go to let me show you here. Okay. So throughout the talk, for those of you that like see me switching a lot between stuff, I wanted to be kind of interactive. So throughout the talk, I'll be using different tools that I used while I was doing the redesign. This tool I have open here is called Adobe XD, and this is basically where the whole redesign project of Git Trends lives. So here I'm gonna show you basically. I'm gonna use this so we can go back to how the design used to be and how we started redesigning each screen, right? And then you're also gonna see this app, which is Illustrator, and we will be talking a little bit more about organizing our assets and defining our color palette and all of that. So don't feel like afraid when you see like, oh my God, what's happening? It's everything is connected, okay? So going back to gathering inspiration, the first thing we need to do is find a way of getting inspiration and guiding our redesign, right? So what we first did, we went through our app through our Git Trends app, and we took screenshots of all of the pages we had in the app. And once we took each screenshot, we put them side by side. Initially, the app had two modes in which you could use it. It had a demo mode and a live data mode. So basically, the demo mode was so you could use the app without having to log into your GitHub account. And in this one, so you could basically see the two states here. This one is once I'm logged in, and this one is on the demo mode. So we basically organize all our screenshots here, and then we will take a screenshot, one of the pages, copy it, and put it here. Create two new canvases and start brainstorming ideas on how we could redesign this. But remember, at the moment, we had no clue about design, so how were we gonna redesign it? So we started using these websites and we said, okay, I want to redesign this list, right? So let me go and search for ideas to redesign the list. And literally, you can just use like simple keywords. You don't need to complicate it. Just write list, and you're gonna get a good amount of designs here, and just start going through them. Identify views and templates that you like. Like let's say in this case, look at this list in case you were maybe your list was like a group of events that were gonna happen. So here you can see like how he created the like a timeline out of the list. Here you can see way more, a lot more designs as well. And the good thing about these sites is that you could filter the results into like Android or iOS, and that helps you also on searching for the results you want. Um, let's see. Let me show you the other one. Wait. Okay. Sorry. I need to move. I needed to move the zoom tool. So this the first one I was showing you was Dribble. The second one we could use is also Uplabs. Uplabs also has great designs here. And if you can see under the designs, it tells you with what tool it was created. Let me put here, okay, free. Yeah. So there's some designs in Uplabs and in Dribble that you can download directly. Let me, I'm trying to see, let's see. I'm not seeing them right now. Let's see. Yeah, live. When you're doing something live, your demo, like stuff don't really come right away, but trust me, when you're using these sites, you're gonna notice some of the designs when you open them, they're gonna have like a URL on the bottom or a button here that says download, and they're also gonna say like the tool they use to make it. So as soon as you find one that says Adobe XD and it's able to download, you can directly download it. What we used to do before we discovered that feature was just collect a bunch of UIs that will inspire us, like a bunch of different lists, and we will start taking and mix and matching from them, and just trying to imitate what these designs, what these designers did. Another good thing when you're trying to search for an inspiration, right? Try to find a design that you can imagine yourself doing in Xamarin with the components you have available out of the box. So in this case, let's say, let me get any of these lists. So for example, you see this design, I really liked it, but I really like it. And I know that I can start, like, I know that mentally I can implement this in Xamarin, right? This probably is like a rounded image and two labels. And then here I can probably use a grid to organize it all. So try and redesign your app in a way that when it comes time to implement it, you're also thinking ahead of time and making it easier for you to implement that design as well. Because there's some designs that maybe are not made in like in mind by, like, they're not made in mind with the limitations the the mobile apps have, right? Because remember, these are designers who are creating these apps, and maybe they don't have the knowledge of like how the components are what properties are available in the component, how can you easily create those components. So they're gonna put all their ideas there, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna have a straightforward way of implementing them. Maybe you're gonna have to create some custom components and all of that, right? So if you're doing your first redesign for the app, I would recommend using components that are simple to make, but also look stylish enough, but also look stylish, right? So that's a way of not complicating the implementation and also getting something clean and nice and making sure uh, the team is able to implement it easily as well. Now we have got in the recent Xamarin releases, a lot of good improvements to Xamarin. Like we got shapes now, and we can do a lot of crazy stuff. Like this design, I'm sure now is really easy to implement in Xamarin without even having to create custom components thanks to the latest updates. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're gonna choose a redesign. When you're gonna choose a design, start imagining how you're gonna implement it.
So Louis, Sarah has a question. She's wondering, are the designs in a particular markup language?
Um, no, so the designs here, they're only PNG files on most of them. So you have the image, and what you do is that using this tool called Adobe XD, you start, let me put it side by side. Let's put it here. So basically what you start doing is you try to start imitating the design you found, right? So let's say I like this design and I wanted to create this card here. I will go to Adobe XD and start creating that card and try to use the same colors and component that designer used. So I could simply come here, create a square, round a bit the corners. Then I see, oh, look, that's really nice. He put the avatar on top instead of next to the text. So here I will create the circle as well. Then I'll come put research. You basically replicate their design, right? So once you have your project ready, like all your screens ready, you can easily use the share feature in Adobe XD, and that feature is going to give you like all the wireframes for your pages. So you're gonna know everything about this component. You're gonna know what is the size of the card, what is the margin from the end of this line to the border of the card. You're gonna know what is the size of the text, what is the color of the text, what is the size of the avatar. So it's just taking that design and implementing it in SAML. So yeah, there's this doesn't generate any. It doesn't get generated to SAML. You have to do that manually. But I do know Kim has been developing a plugin now for Adobe XD that's literally gonna do that part of the work for us as well. So you're gonna be able to take like the screen you designed, right? And you can simply select it all, export, and Kim's plugin will turn this and we'll start generating all the assets for your page, right? So it's gonna generate the colors you're using. It's gonna generate I think it even generates like the font, the font the font as well in the style file. So I still have to look into it, but I know he's working on something like that, which is gonna be really interesting.
There was a really simple plugin for Zeppelin that I've used before. It didn't do much, but
Oh, really?
yeah, it helped give you a little bit of markup.
Let's see. Do you? Oh, you don't
Oh,
remember
no,
much the
not
name
with
of it, right?
XD. Not with XD. It was with
Ah,
another design product, Zeppelin. I don't know if you've ever used Zeppelin, but it's kind of the
oh
same
no.
idea. But XD is like the industry standard now, right? So yeah, it's nice that Kim's working on that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there I'm seeing the chat. Are the designs? What that sounds great. Are all the okay? I see Jonathan has another question. Um, are all the units the same as what is used in the Xamarin apps? For example, the margin you see in XD will be the same you set in your SAML, or is there a conversion you have to do? Maybe based on screen density. Yeah, so no, it's basically the same units, I mean the same measurements. So here you can see, let me show you. So Adobe XD has a really cool feature that which can allow you to show like shows you what is the space between elements. And so what we're doing is we are assuming that this number you see here, right? The units you see are in density independent pixels. So when you go and implement this in your SAML, if it says 16, you're gonna put 16 as well. If it says 8, yeah, just put 8. And yeah, this is the size of the canvas of the device is actually the same size as an iPhone. In this case, it's an iPhone X, iPhone or 11, right? So since you're creating it based on that screen, all the cards and everything are gonna have the right size and are gonna look the same as they look in XD and when you implement it in your app. Does that also apply to font sizes? Yeah. So what you're trying to do with creating your design project is you're trying to get it as close to reality as possible, right? So everything you define here and you do inside of your Adobe XD project, you have to try to do it with the sizes you're gonna use in your app. So once you have your design your page finished, you know that if you implement everything exactly with the same specs you define here, that's what you should get in the app. And that's exactly how it worked for us, and it was seamless. As soon as we implemented everything with the same margin, the same padding, the same font size, the same font color, we didn't need to go back and forth updating colors or fonts to get it to look kind of the same because it was ready to go already. So that's another really powerful thing of using of creating first an Adobe XD project and redesigning your app, like laying out the mockup and getting it as real as you can. Because once you go to the SAML, it's straightforward and you don't need to be doing that back and forth. So let's continue with the next point. So once we have the tools to gather the inspiration, right? Now we know where we can find different layouts and different topics we want. Like if I want to make a list, I can find a bunch of ideas for making lists and adding templates. The next thing I'm gonna notice right away, as soon as I go to one of these apps, I'm gonna get overwhelmed, which is what happened with me and Brandon. We came here and we started seeing like all these different designs, and we were like, okay, how are we gonna know, like how do we know which designs are the ones that are gonna go well with my project, right? In this case, we recommend we learn about something called a visual language, right? So immediately after we learned about it, we saw that this is basically how um, how Apple and Google, these are basically the guidelines their designers define for having a native Android or native iOS app look the way it should for in their environment, right? So there's two visual language for that. There's the Google one, which is material design, and and Apple has the one that are called human interface guidelines. So uh, Git Trends was kind of biased because I've always been an Android lover. So once we learned about the visual languages and that we could choose where to go, basically, I was really leaning towards the Android side of it. And each time I was doing my apps, I always was kind of influenced by material design. I just didn't know at the time that what I was trying to imitate was actually material design. And once I learned about them and I went to the site, so this is a really powerful uh, tool you're gonna have. Basically, just as um, just as we as developer have documentation for our tech, right? Um, the visual language is basically the documentation for our designs. And the good thing is that this is supported directly by the two companies and their design teams. So the whole purpose of this is basically allowing us to implement design in an easy way, right? They have all the best practices. They have a lot of recommendation over here. For example, let's pick, let's say navigation. Let's say I want to implement navigation in my mobile app, and I'm working with material design, and I wanted to look exactly how a native Android app looks. We have the good thing in Xamarin, in which is that our components rendered natively. So we already get most of it out of the box. But let's say I want to get fancy and customize that. But once I customize it, I don't want to like break it in a way. I don't want to like mess up the design in a way that it no longer looks um, uh, like a native Android master detail page, right? So so that's why this is really important and good. You just literally come to material design, you go to the section navigation, and here you can, in our case, the lateral navigation, we can literally see all the recommendations they give us, and they're gonna talk to us about the size we should be providing to the drawer, what is the space between the elements that we should have, the space we should have between the icons and the text. So let me go a little bit further so I can show you here. Navigation. Yeah. Yeah, you see, they have really good examples explaining even how your animations work in terms of navigation. So this is a great tool that helped us. When we needed to implement color, we will go to the color section of material design. We learned about the color system they use, that they have a bunch of palettes that can help us also to implement color to our apps. You see they have this section here. Let me zoom in. They have this section where they explain to you how you can pick the colors for the bars of your app. Like the main bar, it should be, they recommend it should be in the 500 range. So their palettes, how their palette works. Let me go a little bit further down here so you can get a little bit a glance of how their palette works. So if you see here, this is a really neat way of dealing with colors, because if we go into the topic of color, we could literally spend like 3 sessions just talking about colors, and then we start learning about color theory. We know that's like a whole different world. So this was another part that really kind of was a block for us, because we were like, well, what color should we put? Because right now we have like, we had everything blue. And it was not that bad, because you see, it was working and you could differentiate between stuff, but we knew it was not working that well. Well, so we wanted new colors, but we didn't want to fall into the same decisions we had made before. But how should we pick those colors, right? So here they have a really good section, and they simplify it in saying, okay, listen, what you're gonna do for your colors, you're gonna have three main colors for your app. You're gonna have a primary color, you're gonna have a secondary color, and an accent color. So with those three main colors, your app is ready to go. And they say, okay, to make it even more simple for you to generate those 3 colors, and that's gonna be basically your palette. A good recommendation they do is your primary color should be the one in the one with the number 500. So these numbers go from 50 all the way to 900, and each new number is like a different shade of the color. So if you see here, so let's say teal, right? So they recommend primary color, you can use the 500. For your secondary or primary dark color, use something after the 700. You see that they're like darker in terms of this, but it's the same color. And for your accent color, use a totally different color that has a lot of contrast with this one. So how do I know that the other color has enough contrast with this one? They also tell you right away, well, what you can do to simplify that is just pick any other color that is in the range, in this range, right? In this shades. So 400, 200, or 100, or even 50. So your accent color, I always go with 200. That's the most recommended one they use. So as soon as you pick 200 and you put it in front of another 500 color, it's gonna have enough contrast, because if you see all the 200 colors, they are really vivid colors, right? So to define your color, simply do that. Your primary, pick a 500. Your accent, pick 200. And what I like to do is basically, I pick a color, let's say teal, and I try and pick the other one completely opposite to the tone of this one. So in our case, and Git Trends, we see a question here. Do you use this palette tool to define your dark scheme tool, or a different resource? Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's a lot of good resources when you're working with colors and color pickers and generating the palette you want to do. So one of those is this tool they have here. You can literally put any color you want in the generator. Let's say I want this teal color to be my primary color, right? I put the hex here, and it's gonna tell you, once you put the hex, it's gonna tell you, okay, this color you have entered is in the shade of the 500, and these are all the other shades for that color. And it's gonna tell you, well, you could probably use this color as a secondary or a complement to this one. It is gonna look good. And you can also use this other two options. Well, I don't want to go much into detail what analogous, and triadic mean. It's basically let me show it easier here. Let's see. Yeah. So this analogous and triadic are basically color harmony rules. And those rules basically help a designer to pick a color and pick another one that go well with each other, okay? So you can, in this other tool, Adobe Color, you can basically define any of the rule, like reset it and pick a color, and it can automatically tell you, okay, based on this rule of having harmony between colors, these are the colors you should have in your palette. But that's a bit more advanced in color theory and all of that. Remember, we don't have the time at the moment to like specialize in all of the design topics, right? So as developers, we want to keep it simple, and we want to have a quick way of getting the stuff we need to create our design, right? So right now our task is, let's find the colors we want. So the color for Git Trends was also kind of biased by our preferences. I really like the teal color, and I was like, I would like to have teal included in the palette we're gonna use, right? So I literally just came here. I said, okay, let me put teal and see what other options I have to integrate it, like what other colors I could pick to use it. This one didn't work, didn't give me options I liked. Let me put this tool here in the chat so you can go to it. So I kept searching for tools that allowed me to pick, to find different palettes, right? Because also defining a palette for us was like, okay, we definitely need a designer. And just doing some research, we found a bunch of tools that are really helpful that simplify this process for us. So another great tool was this one, coloradobe.com. And this site basically allows you to generate color palettes based on harmony rules. So we literally just started clicking all the rules and moving the colors around, and we were like, okay, that's interesting. And then we learned that they also have another group of tools that are also helpful in getting colors. So you can go to the section of Explore, and you can say, I want to see everything you have in regards to color palettes using teal. So you can write any color here in the bar, and it's gonna start showing you a lot of recommendations of color palettes using the color teal. So you can literally just pick one of these, and once you click the palette you like, it's gonna give you the hex value of all of the colors in that palette. So right away, I saw in this palette that I really liked how the brown and the orange looked in it. So this was the one that attracted me. And I said, okay, I know now that my three colors for my palette are gonna be teal, orange, and brown. Because I really like how this looks. That one has a catchy name. Copy of yeah. Oh yeah, copy of my color team. Yeah, really creative name. So once I pick I picked my three colors. I said, okay, I know what the colors are gonna be, but now I want to find those colors in the material design palette, right? So I can get the shades that I need. Because remember, I said, okay, for my primary color, oh, let me send you guys also where you can download this XD project. So if you have Adobe XD in your machine, you can also download it and follow along. I put in the chat there the URL to the Git Trends repo. We have a directory in the repo called artwork. And under that, you're gonna find this file. Wait, let me zoom this in. You're gonna find this file called gittrends.xd. You are gonna download it and open it in your Adobe XD, and you will see our redesign project here. A good thing about this project is that you can see it as a roadmap of how we went about learning everything we needed to in order to do the redesign, right? So you can see this as, okay, in the beginning of the time, we knew absolutely nothing. We just had the screenshots. Then we started trying to figure stuff out. So we put a screenshot here. We put two blank canvases here. We started creating proposals. Then we started to learn about color. And here you can see what were the three main colors. Well, the main colors we were defining. So initially it was only these three, right? And then eventually we wanted to have a few more accent colors to use in our icons. So we searched a few more colors that went well with these three, and we added them as optional accent colors. So the main accent color was orange, and this was gonna be the primary color, the teal one, right? And we really like the orange one, but says our primary dark, we wanted to use, we were gonna use from the teal color. We were like, okay, where are we gonna put this brown color so it's inside the UI, but it's because this is a really dark color. So if I don't put it here in my status bar, it's kind of hard to put it, let's say, in an icon or something like that, right? So we said, well, our text also needs color, and we wanted our text to have like a custom feeling to it. So we said, okay, let's just use this brown color for our text. If you look close enough at it, you notice it's a brownish color. But if someone looks at it quickly, it might even pass for like a dark text, right? But the good point, the good thing about using this color was that looking at all of them together, it feels right, right? The palette works together, right? So if we go here, that's why when you look at these colors together, like you get a good feeling, basically, because they go well together. So that's a nice thing you can also do. Use your palette and put it in certain elements that maybe are not obvious to the user, but when he sees it as a whole, everything feels like balanced and makes sense. So us putting that brown color there, when the user sees the card, that gives like the final touch for everything to feel like in sync, right? If I change this to a black color, you're gonna see how it kind of feels different. I don't know how to explain it. It's just something like you feel, right? When you look at it. So there you go. You see? So let's see. Here you can see the comparison. This card has the brownish text, and this one has like the a black color, right? And you like it feels too strong, right? Or is it? Am I crazy, or do you guys concur with it?
I agree.
Doesn't this one feel? Yeah. right? Let's see. Yeah, the chat is saying, yeah, I totally agree as well. Yeah, it's like you feel like the black one is like it's screaming at you, bro. The text is like making too much noise, right? So we go back to the brownish color and you see how like smooth it starts to look. So yeah, that's a little nice hack we learned. Instead of using black text, just go with a darker shade of a color that goes well on your palette. Seems to be, let's see, Rajan says, it seems to be some emerging standards. Sees that all use the same 2 to 3 dark colors. Okay. Let me read. Okay. For the dark backgrounds, do you stick to some industry standard set? Um, could you clarify me about that? Are you talking about the dark theme, or yeah, or are you talking about like this status bar over here, the color I use for the status bar? Oh, okay, yeah. For the dark theme, material design also has great documentation on how you can create your dark theme. So here, so see here on the colors, you go to dark theme, and it gives you great ideas on how to implement it. So what we basically did when we were working with the dark theme, uh, well, before talking about that, a good recommendation I'm gonna give you guys right now, when you're redesigning, first work with the light theme. Because you see the color palette, if you look at the light theme and the dark theme compared together, here, there's some colors of the palette that I'm not using. At least not as I was giving you like the standard like flow for you to decide your colors quickly. Like use the primary color in the main bar, use the primary color but in a darker shade for the status bar, and use your accent color for icons or components, right? Like action components, right? So doing the dark theme first could be a little bit harder, and even make it a bit more complex on just brainstorming ideas and getting your first layout together. So the first thing you need to do is work with the light team, define the layout. Don't worry much about the colors first. Start putting boxes, start experimenting with the designs you're finding, and dribble, and just putting all the layout together. And once you have the layout together, you can start looking for the color palette. And that's why you see, like, first I had here in this section, I first created, this was the first proposal for the list. So I first created the cards. We knew we wanted to have cards. We knew we wanted to have also the stats. If you see the first design here, the list, this is how the item template used to be. It had the stats of the repo here. It had the description, the title, and the image. So we wanted to keep the same information, but we wanted to put it in a way that doesn't look uh, uh, like all together, right? And we wanted to look clean. So our first idea was putting everything in cards, giving them proper space between cards. And then we had this great idea of like putting everything in little tags. At first, I really liked it. You see, so at first I really liked it, and it looked like it was gonna work. But that's the good, that's the important thing of doing this with someone else and like getting a lot of feedback while you're working on your redesign, because as soon a problem emerged, and it was that we wanted in one specific case, we wanted to show more than 3 stats. So as soon as I added another one of these tags here, let me show you. Oh, okay. It's blocked. I blocked it. So if you add another one of these tags here and you add 4, you can start to feel how the UI starts to get like cluttered again, right? So we noticed that limitation with these tags we were doing here, that this was like the smallest size we could put them at, in which the user could distinguish the number, and also have like good space between them. So if I put it, if I could have said like, oh, I could put it a little bit smaller, but remember, this is the same size. Sorry, this is the same size as your device. So if you working on your computer and on Adobe see it like you can distinguish really well the numbers and the elements. That's exactly how it's gonna look in the mobile app when you go and implement it with these dimensions. So just adjusting the size, we notice, okay, that size has to be this. And that with that size, we also had good spacing between the top of the tag and the bottom. And the icon was like in the center here. So that was the size it had to go, right? And the problem is we couldn't have more than 3 tags, more than 3 stats at the same time. So we were like, okay, we can't go with this. We have to find another solution. So we came, I basically created another canvas here. I copy pasted the same thing, and looking for more inspiration on the sites, we found we found different options. None of them we were that attracted to because we wanted to keep it really simple. And then just using our everyday app, we noticed in Twitter how they're managing, how they're outlining their stats, right? So, well, this used to be how Twitter used to do it. Before, Twitter used to have their stats like right aligned and like this. Now they have like the icons as the main thing, but before this is how they used to be. And I remember it used to be like look really clean. So we wanted to replicate something like that, and that's why now what we did was we said, okay, let's add a line here that is gonna like separate the description from the stats, and then we're just gonna add the icon and the text next to it, and let's see how it looks. So once we updated it and we like replicated it throughout all the item layouts, it worked really well because now we could add more than 4 and it didn't look cluttered at all. Eventually, we had to also limit it only to 3 because another idea emerged in when we were redesigning the repository list, right? So what's the whole point of this app? The whole point of this app is to know that your repos are trending, right? So at that point, we had like a nice design, but then we were like, oh, but wait, how am I gonna know that something is trending, right? So we had the idea of saying, okay, we could maybe show like a push notification and the user can just go to it, but we wanted also something in the card that gave the user a quick look, a quick feedback that is trending. So we created this little tag here, and this is basically just a rectangle with a label inside. And yeah, so once we created this tag, we tried different options. We tried to put it here, and once we put it here, it didn't really like work with the flow, like it looked cluttered again. So we said, well, here it feels right, but if we add it here, this is taking real estate from our stats, right? And then we come back into the same problem that we were getting the feeling that everything was turning clustered again, right? So what we said was, okay, this is basically telling us that we need to limit our stats to 3 at the most. And that also helped us to like just by doing this exercise of redesigning on this project, that also gave us a hint on what we had to do in our app in terms of managing our stats. So this completely changed the logic of how we were handling before the sorting of the ripples and the stats we were showing in the card. So now what we did was, okay, we're gonna limit it to 3. One is gonna stay constant, and when we sort by a specific stat, let's say clones, because right now here, here you can only see how many people have started this repo, how many forks this repo has, and how many issues this repo has as well. Let me drink a little bit of water.
Yeah, talking for 2 hours straight takes its toll.
Yeah. So even you, if you're watching, take your time to drink some water.
Mm-hmm.
I know when you're like stuck in the computer, like doing a lot of stuff, you sometimes forget to stay hydrated, but it's really necessary to stay active.
Yeah, it's good for your brain too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I think way better when I keep like eating snacks. You see my desk, I have like little a stash of almonds and stuff I can just snack on throughout the day.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah, what we did was we limited it to 3 stats, and we added some logic. So when you wanted to sort, let's say, all the repos and show the one with the most clones, we will change the 3 stats. And since you were trying to look for clones, then probably what you wanted to see also with the clones was how many views this repo has. So when you sort by clones, you see, I believe you see the general views, like how many views in totals you have, how many clones you have, and how many unique clones you have as well. And that way we could offer the user all the stats he wanted in the card, and still just keep it to 3 and have our trending tag on this side, and not just have this stats also like with changing, because this also introduces another problem. If we wanted to do like dynamic amount of stats, right? Let's say you could make two groups of stats you can have in your repo. So one group could be the stars, the forks, and the issues. And another group that is going to go down here is going to be views, unique views, clones, and unique clones, right? So you will have this one, and the other one would have 4 stats. So the problem that this would generate is that if you sort by unique clones, the user is going to notice that these cars are like changing, like these elements under the car are always like changing, growing and getting smaller, growing and getting smaller. That can also confuse them and be like, what's happening here? So this way we make it more seamless for them, and we keep like a pattern, and that allows them to scan easier as well the UI. So before doing the project, we knew nothing about that, like keeping patterns and stuff. We read some of the recommendation of material design, and we actually, after we tried it out, we were like, yeah, it makes total sense. So it might seem like something trivial, but it actually makes a big difference in the UI. So let me go back to the slides, so I can give you a few more of the fundamentals you're gonna need while doing this project, and then we can keep going back. We can come back here, and I can show you a bit more in the project how we were dealing with all the other stuff. So after we choose our visual language, right? In our case, we choose material design. In your case, you can go with the human interface guidelines, which is the iOS one, and your look and feel is gonna look like in iOS. The buttons are gonna have transparent backgrounds. They're gonna have blue text, etc. We noticed that when implementing our design, when trying to work in our project here, we were starting to work with some magic numbers, is what we call them. So when you're implementing, like even you guys have this magic numbers, and you might not realize it. When you're working in Xamarin and just doing a UI, and you're starting to like brainstorm, maybe let's say a list, and you're brainstorming how you're gonna make your item view, right? You start like going to some standards numbers you use. So in my case, when I do a card, I always like to put the padding inside the card to be of 16 dp. So all my content that's gonna be inside the card is gonna be 16 dp of spacing from the borders, right? And then I put my title, and I normally put the title in around 16, I think, the size. And then the description, I normally put like around 12. And then I keep adding stuff, and I like have my numbers for certain stuff, right? And then after I finish the first trial, let's say, of my template, I will run it and I will see how it looks. And then that's when the endless loop of tweaking the numbers starts, and you're like, 16 doesn't look right. Let me put 24 for the title. Let me put 13 or 14 for the description. And you literally waste like you literally spend like 3 to 4 hours just playing with the numbers of the components you have, right? So we noticed that we had all those numbers that we use regularly, and that actually, if you lay it out in a cheat sheet, like just use a paper and start reflecting on how you have been doing your UIs, and what are the numbers you also that have worked for you commonly on your designs, and just start writing them down and use that as a cheat sheet when you're doing your UIs, because it's gonna save you a ton of time on just going back and updating those values, right? So this is my cheat sheet, and I also got inspired by the documentation on material design. Before, my numbers used to be kind of random, but now they have a really good baseline for you to like know what numbers and how to increment them. Let me see if I can find it here. I want to show you. Yeah, I want to show you. They have like a ruler here that is really nice. I believe I put it in one of my posts. Let me show it to you. Let's see. Yeah, I believe it's in this one. Yeah, perfect. So it's under the understanding layout guidelines documentation of material design. So they have literally a whole section just talking about how can you lay out stuff in the screen, and how can you like put the text next to an image, or how can you make the card and all of that, and how you can use spacing to your advantage. Because if you notice something in the Git Trends app, everything looks like, you look at it quick and you feel like everything is organized, right? The thing that is making the UI feel so smooth and clean is literally just spacing. So that's really important when you're designing, when you're redesigning your UI. Make sure you're giving generous spacing to your components between them. So if you see here, I told you in the cards, something that they recommend, and I have proved that also works for me, is give at least 16 dp as padding for the content. And that gives enough reading room for the card to look like a card and contain everything inside. And the stuff that is inside doesn't like tamper with the layout of the card. As soon as I reduce this more than 16, you can see how everything starts to feel like out of whack, right? So let me put this here. You see, if I put it like this, you see how the card doesn't quite feel like a card anymore, right? It feels like it's something else, maybe a rectangle, and that's it. So if I go back, see, enough reading room allows your components to be the components you're trying to make them look like, right? So these are some of the numbers I use, and you can also use this as a baseline and start experimenting, or just use the same ones I have taken out of the material design documentation and use in our project. So how our magic numbers work is that we increment by 4, by 8, or by 60. And here you also have in our cheat sheet like a reference of how 4DP looks, how 8DP looks. And just by looking at this, you can say, oh, I know that I want to have like a title, and maybe in this case, let me show you. Where is it? Settings. So, okay, I know I want to have like an image here, and I want to have like the name of the user, but I don't want them to be that close between each other, right? So let me go to my cheat sheet and find which number could I use. Instead of just trying them all out, you could be like, oh, well, I think this might be a good spacing, or I think it's probably 32 what I use, because I don't want the text to be too close to the image, because then it's gonna look like cramped together, right? And if we go here, oh, look, actually we're using 16 here. So you can see also how you don't even need to give that much space between stuff to make it look separate between each other. So just play around with the numbers and try different ideas when you're doing your layout. And once you have something you really like, you can go to your app and implement it, and it should look exactly how you have it here. So for text, I normally use numbers after 12. Like the minimum I would use for a text is 12, because reading also the iOS guidelines, the lowest they recommend for you having in their text is around 11, or yeah, around 11 SP. So I always go with 12, because I know there's some fonts that you might use that once you put it below 12, the user, it's really hard for them to read. So just play it safe, and the minimum you give your fonts, make it 12. So after 12, I can increment by 4, and I can go either to 16 and 24. So I keep increasing it like that. If I want to make text look like it's related to each other, I will use something either between 4 to 8 dp, or in some cases as well, depending on the font, I will use like 2 dp. For UI components to be spaced between each other, minimum I give them is 8 dp, and standard I always give 16. And after 16, if I see they're too far, or I want them a little bit closer, I go down to 8, or I go up to 24, or to 32, etc. And you keep increasing in those factors, and that should make it really easy for you to just arrange stuff around. For icons, in this case, let me see. For icons in my UI, material design recommends that your icons are always between 24 times 24 to 32. If you have it bigger than the 32, then it's not an icon, it's probably an image you want to use. So yeah, you can also use those numbers for the icons. For avatars, in this case, you see in our list, like we have this avatar here. I use between 32 times 22, 32 times 20 times 32, or 52 or 72, and you can keep increasing in values of 16 and get different bit sizes for the avatars. Those are the numbers that have worked for me for the avatars. Like if we go to this one, we can see, oh, look, I actually lowered it a little bit more here. Let me see. Yeah, in this one, we use 72. I think before we had 72 here, but it was a bit too big. You see how it gets really close to the text, and I didn't want to break my 16 dp from the right side, so I was like, okay, let's just lower it to, I could have gone to 58, but I felt like it actually looked better with 62. So this is not a rule set in stone. Your number should be flexible. So just play around with them, but use your cheat sheet as a base guideline to help you put stuff in your UI, right? So after we had our magic numbers, we were able to keep working with the other designs and placing squares on the screen and like just arranging stuff around, right? After that, it was just working with colors and going back and forth with feedback loop. So I already went into the tools, but the next thing we had to learn about after we had like our cheat sheet of numbers was what tools could I leverage to make it easier for me to do this redesign, right? So the tools we found that we could use were Adobe XD and Sketch. Adobe XD is where we did the whole design, and in Sketch is where Brandon created the Git Trends logo. So Brandon already had this created, and he just sent it to me, and I used this Sketch project to grab the logo and just give it the new colors we decided to use. But yeah, if you see, he did a really good job here. And Sketch basically is just a tool in which you can work with vectors. And well, so when you're working with design and yeah, with design resources, there's two type of resources you could use in terms of showing illustrations to your app, right? You could either show an image, a PNG, or you could use SVG, which is basically a vector file, um, and vector file, right? So for icons, it's really recommended that you use vectors instead of PNG. And what is a vector? A vector is basically a path, right? It's like an object, and it's defined by a vector formulas, and basically everything is a path inside a vector. And the good thing about this is that it has no problem on scaling up or down in our UIs, because this image is actually just calculated by your device using the formula that defines it. So that's why you see that it can scale up and down and keep the same quality it has. So for icons and really small assets in your UI, we recommend using vectors. So you see all the components we have here, like all the images, all the icons are vectors. But for I will say after you pass the size of 48 times 48, or well, you can maybe even go, let me see what's the biggest vector I used. I believe like past 72 times 72, uh, you should no longer use vectors, because remember, this is something that's being calculated by the device at render time. So the more big your vector is, the more impact it also has in your performance, right? So you want to use vectors, but don't use really complex vectors that have like a lot of paths in them. So keep them to a minimum, and to a minimum in size. And if you keep them to a minimum in size, you can use however much you like. And if you see you're going a bit higher than those numbers, just go with an image and generate all the assets for that image. And you should still have crisp quality. And you should save a lot of time in adding those. Like if instead of using vectors, you just use images for everything. You know that each image you add to the Xamarin project, you have to generate like all the assets for all the folders, right? So you're saving also a lot of time by using vectors for the icons. So yeah, that's what I recommend. Just use images where it's really big and you need an image, and everything else use a vector if it's an icon. Let's see some of the questions. You should try Figma and Webflow next time. Oh yeah, I have heard about Figma. I have not downloaded it and tried it, but they have told me that it's a really good tool. So yeah, that's another good tool you guys can use as well. I'll probably look into it by the end of the year, because I gotta be honest, it's a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, but I'll definitely look into it. A lot of people have given me good reviews about it. I want to hear more about how do you decide when to use fill and outline icons. Yeah, that's a really good question as well. And let's see. Okay, let's go into Sarah's question. So if you notice our icons, just as our design, right? Icons have different styles. So in our designs, we were talking about material design and human readable guidelines, and they have like their own set of rules, right? And like their own style. So for icon packs, you also have certain styles for your icons. So I'll be honest with you, Sarah. At first, we had no clue that like we should pay attention to like the icons. If we're You should go like with one style, and that also gonna keep like balance throughout your UI. And because if you're mixing, let's say, this style with this fill style, and you have them one next to each other, the user, it doesn't give it confuses the user as well. So initially we just picked the icons we like. We used to use a bunch of sites like icon finder, and we will start searching for icons here. Let's say I want view, and any icon I saw that I like, that's what I would put in the project. And then eventually we noticed, oh wait, they're not working that right because some look totally different than the other. So in the end, what we decided to do to solve that is go with one of both. Go with one style of icons, right? But it's not like you have to, like if you pick one style of icons, you can only go with that throughout the project. The main takeaway is that if you're using icons, make sure that in the screen, if you're using, let's say, field icons, make sure only you have next to each other field icons. And if you want to use another style, you can use it, but don't make it like rival the other main style you're using. Just use it as secondary. And in this case, we use outline icons because we really liked how these gesture icons look, and they felt nicer than the fill versions we found for them. So we were like, okay, since this is like a separate screen and it only has this style of icons, it worked fine. But as soon as we mixed it, yeah, it looked kind of wacky. So if you see, our main style is filled icons, see? And in some cases, we use outline icons, but they're really, really minimal. It's only over here in the overview and yeah, I think that's the only place where we're using it. Let's see. Oh no, yeah, we're using it here as well, but yeah, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, remember, we're not designers. Here we mixed it, but look, it doesn't, for us, it's working. Now, if a designer comes to tell us, oh, you shouldn't have done that, well, we tried our best. Just make sure you give it your best, and if it looks decent, just go with that. Yeah. So after that, let's see. After having our tools, we were ready to start like drawing up designs and doing suggestions. But everybody knows that when you're doing a side project and you like, you're doing a side project, you're also working throughout the day, so you're busy, and most of the times side projects just get abandoned. Let's be honest. You start really excited and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and in 3 months it's gonna be in the market and people are gonna love it. And 3 weeks go by, you're really excited, and then start getting complicated, and you eventually abandon it, right? So something that we found was really key to us to implementing and going about doing this redesign was holding ourselves accountable and designing a workflow for us to make it easier to share ideas and to keep improving and learning what we were doing, right? So we try to keep this simple. It may sound fancy, like, oh, we define a workflow, but keep it simple. What we did is, okay, we have the repo already in GitHub. We have tools in GitHub that we can use to manage issues that come with the app and like integrate new code, right, and collaborate. So let's just use GitHub as well as a way for us to keep track of what we're doing design-wise in the project, right? So if you go to the Git Trends repo and you go to issues, you're gonna find, well, here's a good example. You're gonna find that we have also issues that have to do with UI UX redesign, because we're also keeping track of the Adobe XD changes in the project in the version control, right? Because we have it in the repo. So this tool was really good for us to stay organized and have members of the project also contribute to what we were designing and get more feedback. So if we come here, we can find the first issue we created, which was UI UX. See, it was called App UI UX Redesign. So remember back in the slides when I said, oh, how could I contribute? And then I was like, okay, I'll try and do something around UI UX. Already in the repo, there were a few other issues that were referencing UI UX things like improvements that could be made. So there was one talking about improve the color palette and create a dark theme. There was one talking about rebranding of the app logo, color palette. I mean, wait, rebranding of the app. Yeah. So they wanted to rebrand the app with a new color palette. And then since I wanted to do like a general thing and include everything, like the whole redesign of the app, I created this issue. I mentioned the other issues here, and added a few other ideas I had, which was like one of the main problems we had at the moment in the app in terms of user experience is that as soon as you open Git Trends, we had no welcome page, no login, no anything. So what we had was the setting page. So as soon as you went into Git Trends, you will be taken directly to the settings page. It will show you a pop-up here that will like give you a warning and tell you like, oh, there was a problem authenticating. Please sign into please connect your GitHub account so you can start using the app. So that was creating some confusion for our users because you felt like something was missing, right? Because as soon as you open the app, you were like already inside of the features of it, right? So we said no, that was good for the beta, but now we need to make a good flow for the user so he doesn't feel like confused and lost in the app. So we decided to say, okay, let's create a first launch and authentication flow for the app. And let's see what else. Yeah, so initially when I mentioned the first launch, I didn't know, I didn't have the word in my mouth, in my head at that moment to say onboarding. So just keep it simple, write it however it comes out in your mind. And then eventually when you start researching, you're gonna start finding the keywords that are gonna give you what you're trying to find. So this issue allowed us to have the onboarding and to also define welcome page and authentication, and polish our authentication flow, right? So we put it here, we started commenting, we put the screenshots, and then you see, you can start outlining the stuff you're doing. Like, okay, the first thing I was doing was the logo rebranding. Just, I picked the color palette, I put the primary color to the logo. So remember, in the three colors you're picking, there's one that's called the primary. So the primary color in material design is the one you use throughout your main surfaces, right? So all your bars, your navigation bars are gonna have your primary color. The primary dark color you're only gonna use in the status bar. So your primary color is basically the color of your brand or of your project. And in our case was teal. And the accent color is just like the details. It's a color used to outline like highlight important things in your project. So that's why in the onboarding here, you see I use the primary color and the accent color instead of primary and the primary dark. So you can play around with that and use that when you're trying to make design ideas. And if you use the colors like that, like make sure the accent is always for highlights and the primary is for like bars and stuff like that. As soon as you start putting them here and putting them in those places, the design is gonna make sense on its own, because remember, you're guiding yourself from the recommendation of the guidelines, so everything is gonna make sense. So yeah, that's how we were organizing that. Then we put when we were working on the icons, we also put the icons we were picking, the components. Then we were talking about dark surfaces. So as soon as I was tackling each of the issues, I use this one as the main issue. And this is like the summary. And this one solved also all the others. So yeah, in the others, you can have like more detailed conversation about that topic, but make sure to use one as like the main entry point, right? Okay, I see another question from Rajan. He says, do you use one of the primary or accent colors for buttons, or do you define a button palette? So for buttons, since we didn't have that much like knowledge in design and stuff, uh, remember each platform implements their guidelines to their components, right? So you get out of the box with Android. As soon as you define a button in Android, uh, you get that button gets all the gets implemented all the guidelines of material design. So as soon as Xamarin shows it in your Android device, it already has like all the recommended specs by material design. So we just said, okay, we're gonna keep, since we're going with material designs, the button we're gonna use are the ones that conform to the recommendations from the documentation here, right? So we literally just came here and we went to, let's see where it is. Sound, shape. Nope, it's not shape. Let's see. There's one that talks only about buttons and components. Oh, wait. Yeah, let's see. Cards, components. Let's see. They have a cool, here it is, here it is, here it is. Yes. So they have this cool section over here that is literally only for components, right? How can you configure your cards, your buttons, your banners, the chips, the icons, your list? So here, this is one of the most powerful things we had in the documentation. Okay, we want to make a list. How do we know what is the right amount of spacing we should have between the elements and and the cards we put inside of it, and maybe also the list in reference to the edge of the device? They have everything that you're gonna need here. So you literally go to the documentation, you go to list, and it's gonna tell you. So for the anatomy, basically how that list should look and the components inside of that list, like the child, is gonna tell you how to arrange them in a way so they look balanced. You see how they put all these samples here. And they also are gonna tell you how the behavior of that list should be. Like when you press an item, it should show a little feedback to the user that he's tapping or something. That's why sometimes when we're doing when we're doing the tap gesture in Xamarin, you know that a requirement for that tap gesture to work is that we had to have that feedback there, right? Because if not, it looks like it doesn't feel, even for the user, that he's tapping on the thing. It feels like it's not a native app, right? So you have to provide visual feedback to your user so he knows he's interacting with your app. So they talk about all of that over here. And you can, let's say for buttons, we wanted to say, okay, how should our button be? And here you can see the different type of buttons. They, like the main different types of buttons they support, which is outline and contain, or only the text. And they give you the specs of how much spacing there is between the text and the border, or also between the icon and the text, so it looks balanced. So yeah, we just came here, found the specs, and kept our buttons simple. We said our buttons are gonna be rectangular, are gonna have an icon here, and we are gonna use them accordingly to where we have them, right? So in our onboarding, which we're using like everything, the background is like the primary color. So for this button here, if we made it like a dark color, it was not going to play well with the primary color because our color is kind of dark already, right? So we just put the accent color there, since this is an action that he was going to do in the app, and it was to enable notifications. And for the GitHub button, we could have also put this background teal and put this color, the color of the button accent. But remember, these are just suggestions. These are not rules written in stone. So rules are made to break. And we said, we actually want the GitHub button to be branded like with the color of GitHub, right? So GitHub has, it's not completely black. You see here, let me put it in the chat. It might look like it's a black color, but it's actually not completely black. So we search for what is the color of GitHub, the brand, the dark color they use. And yeah, we use that for our button, and that makes the button look completely in brand, and the users identify easily that that's GitHub, right? So we broke the rule there. And for the buttons throughout our app, I don't think we have that many. Yeah, the buttons throughout our app, we literally just have this component here, which is like segmented control. I mean, no, this, how do you call this? I forgot the name. Dylan, help.
The segmented control.
Yeah, I was not sure. I don't know why I forgot this. I was like, it's segmented controller, is it? Yeah, yeah, that's the name. So we have our segmented controller here, and you see, instead of using the accent color here, we went with the primary color. And if you go to the documentation, remember, anything that is navigation or like a main surface should go with the primary color. So this is not really an action he's doing. He's mostly doing a setting here, right? He's configuring how the charts are gonna appear when he goes to the trends page over here. So basically, he was just saying, what are the stats I want to see as soon as I go to the trend page? Do I only want to see the views? I mean, the unique views, the unique stats, my bad. Or do I want to see everything together? Or do I only want to see the general stats, right? So since this was not really an action, more of a setting, we decided to go with primary. And you see how well it looks with the screen, right? If we put accent, he might think that as soon as he presses this, it's probably going to show him a confirmation or do something else, right? And even like for the switches, we also use the primary color here. You could actually use here accent color, which is what they recommend, but remember, you can break the rules. We wanted to use the teal color here, but default Android is going to use for the switch components and their buttons, they're going to use your accent color because that's what they recommend. But you can break that rule and use your primary throughout your design as well. You just need to be conscious of not using too much of the primary and like using it in spots that is gonna get it's not gonna get noticed, because remember, that's why you have the accent to easily show that a part of the app that the user knows he can do something with it. So don't take this, what we did here, like it's the recommended thing. You should be using accent color there. So let's see here, going back to the slides. Okay, defining workflow and feedback loop. So our workflow, we handle through GitHub. We store everything here. We publish all our stuff here. And our feedback loop. So to do your feedback loop, I recommend, let me go to the slide. I didn't tell much the two things I'm going to talk to you about here. But in the blog, if you go to my mobile app redesign blog, at the end, I talk about the feedback loop. Basically, the feedback loop is what is going to allow you to not abandon the project and stay motivated on and working bit by bit to eventually finish it, right? So what was our strategy in terms of staying accountable? So the first thing I would recommend you is just find someone you can bother any time of the day uh, with what you're doing. So find someone that actually is, you always have a friend that has always been like interested in design and has always been playing around with it and really enjoys it. So, or you have a friend that is really interested in mobile apps and any project you're working on, they're really happy to help you out. So in my case, that main person I chose, which was easy for me because it was Brandon, right? He was the creator. He was also interested on getting the UI UX revamped on the app. So it was perfect. Uh, so after you pick that person, try and always keep the communication as simple as possible. Don't start using fancy tools. Don't start making like boards and stuff. Well, if you feel you're way more organized that way and you both prefer it, you can do it. But I feel like keeping it simple helped us a lot to just keep working on it, feeling like it was just for fun and like we could just keep talking between each other, right? So the way we were communicating was we always use Twitter DMs. So while we were doing the project, we would literally just text out whatever time, like, and send screenshots. You could maybe Brandon had an idea for the list, and he will draw something in a sheet of paper and send it to me in my DMs, and be like, hey, remember how we did this list? I think we could add this icon here, and just keep your conversation like that. Eventually, you can make maybe a work session on a weekend and say, okay, let's do a work session of 2 hours and do a video conference through Zoom or through Teams and really work that extended time together on that. But by keeping it only on our DMs and sending screenshots to each other, we stayed active on the project and always our ideas flowed a lot better. And after you have that buddy, that is going to basically be the one that's going to help you throughout the initial start that you're going to have on. So basically, that person is going to have, Brandon had from me, like, I'm not going to lie, like literally 60 to 70 screenshots of this same page. So that person, each time you add something, you can send a screenshot easily to them and be like, hey, I just added this, what do you think of that? And it's like a really short feedback, right? But after you have that one, I recommend getting 3 more. But those 3 other buddies you're gonna find have to be people that are interested in design and have maybe some prior knowledge on it. And I saw that it worked for me, that their background were completely different. So in my case, I picked four friends. Um, One of them was Frankie, was called Frankie Arbelo. He's a good friend of mine. We met back in university, and he studied industrial design, and he has like 10 years working on the field and stuff. So I took him as my, between the group of friends, he was like my expert, right? He was an expert in design. Then I had another friend, which is Joseph. He's a software engineer. He's always been interested in UI UX. He's been also like creating his designs and doing it as a hobby. And he's been doing it for like 5 years, just playing around with the tools. Then I had Vanessa. She was a doctor, but she creates illustrations and draws in her free time. And my last friend was Luis Alberto. I'm sorry, which is a childhood friend of mine, and he studied publicity, but now he works as a producer and everything. So they're like interested in design, and they have always been working on it. So there are people that love the topic that you're now trying to learn and do something about, right? So as soon as you reach out to them, you're gonna see a really good response in their side, because you're the pitch was, hey, I want to learn about app redesign, and I know it's something you really love, and I would like to see if I could send you maybe my polished design, and you can just give me your feedback, completely honest, just anything that comes up to your mind, give it to me, and help me out with this, right? Since it's something they love, I got really awesome feedback from them. They were really honest. They sometimes you will send them something and they will be like, I gotta be honest, Louis. I don't know what you were trying to do there, but no. So that's really good. All criticism is good. So make sure you have those at least three, a group of friends. You can just make maybe a WhatsApp group or an email list, and you can just send them the final polish or almost final design you have, right? So that group they are not going to receive 60 screenshots of this same page. They were only going to receive, after me and Brandon brainstorm a lot and have something we think is good now and we want to implement it, we will send it to our group of friends, and they will give their final feedback on that, and we will maybe change a color, maybe change a little bit of the spacing, and that will be it. And that way it was really effective for us to keep redesigning our ideas and keep polishing our end design. So remember, we started with this, it looked kind of good, and after all that feedback and continuous back and forth, we got to this one, which looks like it came out of dribble, and I just copy paste something. But this is actually the feedback is complete is the most important part. That is going to help you a lot, and sometimes it's going to get you unstuck on some design situations you're having, and you're like, oh, this color is not really working, and someone can just be like, yeah, but you can just find a palette here with this other color and it works. So get a group of friends and everything will flow perfect after that. At least I'm gonna start flowing perfect. Nothing is perfect, okay? So, oh, I see it's 8 already. We're kind of over the time. I wanted to show you one last thing before we leave, and I can answer any other questions you may have. Where's the Behance project? Here. So before we leave, I wanted to show you how our redesign looked after using all these resources and tools I have showed you throughout the talk, how we got from this to the final design of Git Trends, which is now what I'm going to show you here. Let me go back so you can see a full screen. So also this document here, I learned how to do it just by looking at other designers, how they show their finished portfolio, right? Their design ideas. I was like, I really want to show our Git Trends redesign in that way as well, because this really shows how much you can improve just by taking those just by reading the material design documentation, taking little adjustments in your design, and yeah, it looks like if I show it to you, you probably think this was a designer that made it, and that's what I want you guys to be able to do by using all the resources I'm providing you, and just to see how we could get to something as this just by using our resources, right? So here you can see a few of the previews, the onboarding, the repositories. So the first thing we did was a logo redesign. Our logo now has the primary color instead of that blue color we used to have. We also created a white version of the logo to use in our in our dark surfaces. We created an onboarding experience, which helped the user to learn about some of the main features we have on the app and how to use it. So this is the first thing you see on first launch of the app. This for onboarding, and once you skip, this onboarding doesn't appear anymore because we only want it to appear on first install, not each time the user opens the app, right? Then we created a welcome page, and this is how our welcome page looks. Simple. Welcome to Git Trends. We put an image here. We put the logo. Since it's a vector, we got a really cool site. Let me send you this site. It's called OnDraw in the chat. It's a really good site to find any
Oh,
assets
nice.
you need.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Yep.
about that. Are those, do you use Undraw in your slides too, Louis?
Yep.
Ah,
Yep. I
nice.
use OnDraw for everything because
Awesome.
it's completely open source. The designer that does it, if you see the site, she says you don't need to give me any credits or attribute anything to me, but just make sure when you use it, like use it in a way that you're not profiting for it, like making another library of this.
Yeah.
But that makes you like, that gives you such a good feeling that you also, by the way, just give the credits to her. And that's what you should that's what you should do, because look at all the hard work she has put in. Like
Yeah.
it's a big library of really high quality icons, you see.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is you literally can choose any color
Oh,
you want.
nice. Oh, that's
Yep.
great. So you don't even have to open them in Illustrator and change your colors. That's nice.
Nothing. Yeah, and she is a rock star. I don't know. After
Oh,
I
that's
found
amazing.
this, my designs went from
Oh,
beginner
yeah.
level to expert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything you've been doing, Raj says designer equals fired. Everything I've
Yeah.
seen you put out in the last, I don't know, probably, well, since we met at Summit, has been so
Yeah.
polished. I was also going to
Yeah.
ask you, like, I don't want to take you on such a
Yeah.
tangent, but your personal logo, where did
Yeah.
you do that, or did you, like, yeah, where did that come from?
Well, so my logo was made, you remember the four friends I showed here? So my friend Joseph, he really, like, when I started my blog,
Hmm.
I was talking with him and getting his feedback on my blog and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, you really need a logo," and I was like, "Yeah, but right now I don't even know how to make logos." And he was like, "I'll hook
Yeah.
you up," and he came up with
Huh.
that logo for me.
Nice.
But yeah, and I don't know if you guys understand what it is, but it's supposed to be a P and an L.
Oh yeah.
At first, yeah, at first I didn't get it, but I was like, yeah, actually this is a P and an L. So yeah, I have to thank him for that.
Nice. Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
great.
there's a lot of sites where you can get good illustrations for free you can use throughout your project. So another good one besides this one that I put on draw already here is FreePic. Let me put you guys this one as well. So in FreePic as well, you can find vectors and photos uh, like a really professional quality. So let's say a vector, I wanted to find I, or let's say software, computer, right? Something like that. And that's gonna bring you up a lot of vectors you can use, and they are in SVG format. So you can literally open them in XD, Adobe XD, or Illustrator. And all of the stuff that are here, you can use separately because they're vectors. So each of those are shapes that you can just copy paste and use them as icons. So this is a really powerful site as well. And you see the quality, and it's completely free. Like you just need to give credits and see the license, and that's it. So let me finish over here showing the other few screens we had. So we created the welcome page, and you see how I put the design. This is literally, I saw how someone also made it. They had this cool little title. They put the font here, welcome, like the title, welcome page, and on the background, they literally just took this, put put it bigger, right? So this is like, I think 24, and this is like 72 font size. And you just put this as black color, right? And you put the opacity down to 5%. Oh, that's another neat trick. Will be good for you guys when you're designing. Let me see if I can show you. Where's an example of that? Maybe in one of my banners. Let's see. This is a really neat trick that you can use in your apps as well when you're doing custom components and working with different color backgrounds. Oh, well, yeah, here you can see it. You see this banner I made, right? Over here, I wanted to use this a different color here for the topic of the blog post, right? Because it's a series about like mobile app redesign, but this one is about iconography and magic numbers specifically. But if you put this really saturated color on top of this teal color, this gradient, it makes a lot of noise in the eyes. And even like here, you can see here, you see how like it hurts to see it together. Like if this was text, I couldn't read it, basically. So when you have that situation, that could also happen with like a really clear background, and maybe you have like a light blue here. You can't put white text because the white text it doesn't have enough contrast, right? So you can do this nice trick and basically just put a rectangle behind it, and that's actually a rule that we apply to the icons as well. So you put a rectangle, right? You write the text. Numbers, let's say, right? So this is what I mean. Let me select it, put it around, put it over here. Let's put this 24. You put it here. Let's say the background of this is gonna be the primary color, dark primary color. You see how the text, you can't really read it because it's dark, right? So if I want the text in that color and I want it in that dark background, I can literally just come and put this behind it. Right. Order, send to back. Bring to front. Okay. And what you're gonna do is the background of the text, you can either put white or black. And the opacity, you're gonna put the opacity of the background between 5 to 15% of opacity should be perfect to create this effect. So that allows you over here, let's see the opacity. It's in the color. Opacity. So let's say 5%. I don't want borders. Okay. You'll see what I mean now. You see the effect it creates? Now, even though the text is a black color, right? And it has a dark background, you can distinguish the text easily and you can read everything with no problem. Because you created like that white background, but it has a really smooth opacity. So it doesn't really look like you added that color there. It looks like the text is only there. So yeah, you can use that neat trick to facilitate putting color text on top of color backgrounds. So yeah, make sure to use that in the future. If you see you have to do like maybe this welcome page and this has to be a certain color, just throw a specific like shade on the background. So I'll just walk quickly through this and then we can wrap up. And if you guys have any questions, that's you can do them now. So this is how the repositories list looks now. We have dark theme and white theme. I mean light theme. And this is Android, this is iOS design. You see that the iOS one looks a bit different in terms of the navigation. We wanted to keep the iOS one to have the iOS navigation feel, but also the main content has to go with material design. So that is other stuff you can play around with as well when you're developing the design for both platforms. What I did here, I did everything for Android, and then we just on the fly, we did updates like tweaks for iOS. So you see iOS when you go to the referring sites, it's a modal pop-up. So you see it like this instead of this, but that comes with the platform, right? And then lastly, but not least important, we also added empty state. Before we would just show an empty screen here and the user would be like, okay, what's happening? Now we decided to add empty states, and you see the same illustrations. Those are all from OnDraw as well. And you see how beautiful your empty state can come out looking. And you literally just have a label here and the image, and that's it. That's all you need for empty states. Then we put here what were the colors we used at the end. You see our main three colors here. And then we added this, in our palette, we had this brownish color we use for text. Yeah, we had this brownish colors we use for text. We have all our accent colors here that we use for the different stats we have for the repos. We decided to have a different palette just for the chart. So it looked, you see, different. These colors were completely different from the app, and that way it gave it an interesting look as well. You define also your background colors, your car surfaces. So the most important thing is when you're defining the colors, give everything a color. So you're not guessing what you're implementing. What should this color, what color should this have? What should that have? Just define everything. Give everything its color. This is the font we use. So we use Roboto regular, medium, and bold. Fonts have different weights. So instead of using the bold attribute for the font, don't use that. That's bad. It doesn't render the font good. And some fonts don't even allow you, like when you try to make them bold, it doesn't do anything. So just install the different weights for the font. And if you want it a little bit more bold, just use a medium or bold or black, and that should do it. And yeah, that should do it for my presentation. I'm really grateful for everyone that attended, and for Dylan and the Toronto community giving me the opportunity to just come out and hang out and talk a little bit about design. I wish we could have like more time to talk about everything, but it's too much. That's why I'm doing that live series in Twitch each Friday. It's in English as well. You can join us next Friday. And we are literally going through all the topics, but more detail. So like we're learning more about icons and how we use magic numbers, and what gotchas we had when defining some numbers, working with color, other tools we use for colors, other palettes, sites. Let me send this last site, sorry. So yeah, join us in those sessions. We're in the .NET Community Twitch channel for the next 3 to 4 Fridays. And it's going to be really interesting because if you saw here in the issues of Git Trends, so we actually want to launch the version 2.0 of Git Trends, and we want to add these 3 new features to the app. which is going to be an about us page to say thank you to all the contributors that have worked on the project and have contributed with their translation, their localization efforts, any UI UX efforts they have put in. Then we're going to do give the user the ability to favorite one of the repos. So when you filter, the favorites always come up in the top, and it's easier for them to always look at the ones they're interested in. And we're also going to add this cool thing, which is called star tracking feature, which we're going to take from this site. And basically, it shows you like a chart of how your stars have changed throughout the time. And yeah, since the app is about trends, we thought this was a feature that was gonna be really exciting to have, you see?
Nice.
So we're gonna do a chart for this. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and I hope to see you again and come back to Toronto community and keep sharing other topics you might like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was fantastic, Louis.
Thank you.
Very nice
So let's see if
presentation.
they have any other questions.
Yeah, any questions? I can open up. Let's see. If anybody wants to unmute themselves, I'll stop the recording.
Yeah, let me stop sharing here. Oh, well, maybe if they have a question here, I can just share.
Yeah, any questions?
Let
People
me
on the
click on
recording here.